The shivering stranger, the rain fell hard that night. Drops pounded against the roof of James's small shelter, filling the air with a steady, drumming rhythm. He sat on a creaky chair, staring at the fire, trying to ignore the storm. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the wooden walls. A soft, shaky whisper cut through the noise. "I'm dirty." Inside and out, James froze. His heart jumped. The voice was faint, almost a whisper carried by the wind, but it sounded like something was close. He slowly got up and grabbed a flashlight. The beam of light trembled slightly in his hand as he stepped toward the door. The voice came again, closer this time. "Please, I just need help." James's mind raced. Could it be a lost traveler? Or something worse? He pushed the door open and rain poured over him instantly. He shivered, but he didn't step back. There was a sound coming from a corner of the shelter. Something small, trembling. He crouched down and saw a shape under a dirty, wet blanket. The form was shaking violently, and James could barely make out her outline. Her hair, or something like hair, clung to her shoulders in wet clumps. Her breathing was quick, shallow, almost frantic. James swallowed hard. "Hey, are you okay?" he asked cautiously. A soft, frightened voice answered. I'm dirty. Inside and out. Please don't leave me." James felt a mix of fear and curiosity. He had never seen anyone like her before. There was something unnatural about her. She didn't look completely human. Her skin, as much as he could see under the blanket, shimmered faintly in the dim light. Her eyes, when she peeked at him, were large and reflective, almost glowing. He hesitated, but something in her voice, the fear, the desperation, made him move closer. Slowly, carefully, he lifted the edge of the blanket and froze. Her face was delicate, almost fragile, but not human. Smooth, slightly translucent skin reflected the flashlight. Her eyes were enormous, black and shiny, holding a strange intelligence and sorrow. Tiny, faint patterns glimmered on her arms, almost like circuits of light. She looked exhausted but alive, and James felt a strange pull toward her. Curiosity mixed with fear. I won't hurt you," he said softly, trying not to startle her. The alien, or whatever she was, trembled, then nodded. "Thank you," she whispered. I just needed shelter from the rain." James wrapped a dry blanket around her shoulders, trying to warm her. She shivered, but the blanket seemed to help a little. He could see her glance at the corner where he kept his supplies, but she didn't move. She was cautious, almost scared to touch anything. "Where did you come from?" James asked, still in shock. She hesitated. "Far away. Not from here." I ran. I had nowhere else." James felt a mix of fear and wonder. His small, quiet life had never included anything like this. And now this strange, shivering being, this creature with glowing patterns and eyes too big to be human, was sitting in his shelter, trusting him enough to survive. Lightning flashed outside, briefly illuminating the room. The alien flinched, hiding her face in the blanket. James noticed the faint glow of her skin under the lightning. It was beautiful and terrifying. He realized she was more than just a stranger in need. She was something extraordinary, something not from Earth. James took a deep breath. "Okay, you can stay tonight," he said softly. "Tomorrow we'll figure out what to do." The alien nodded, curling under the blanket, her big eyes still watching him. James felt a mix of fear, awe, and responsibility. He knew one thing for certain. His life had changed forever. Outside, the storm continued to rage. Inside, a shivering stranger from far away had found a temporary shelter, and James had found a glimpse of something larger than himself, a secret that could change everything. Secrets under the blanket. The morning after the storm was quiet, almost unnaturally so. James stirred awake to the soft light of dawn filtering through the shelter's small window. He glanced toward the corner where the alien, Lyra as he had quietly decided to call her, still huddled under the blanket. She hadn't moved all night, only shivering occasionally. James hesitated. Part of him wanted to pull the blanket back and see her fully, but another part was afraid. He didn't know what she truly was. He had glimpsed her face last night, and it had haunted him. The glowing patterns on her skin, the strange intelligence in her eyes. She was beautiful, but not human. "Lyra," he whispered, her head lifted slightly. Her large, reflective eyes stared at him, wide and cautious. "Yes," she whispered back, her voice soft, musical, but tinged with fear. James stepped closer, keeping his hands visible. Do you need food, water?" Lyra shook her head. "No." can wait." Her eyes scanned the small room, darting nervously. Then she spoke again, almost in a sigh. I should not be here. They will come for me." James froze. "Who will come?" "The hunters," she said softly. "They track me. They will take me. Or worse." Her words carried a weight James didn't fully understand, but they made his stomach tighten. For the next hour, James watched her cautiously. Every time she moved, faint glimmers appeared on her arms and shoulders, patterns that shifted and pulsed with soft light. When she touched a wooden chair, it seemed to hum faintly, like it had responded to her presence. James took a deep breath. "What are those patterns? On your skin?" Lyra hesitated, then traced her fingers over the lines. "They are part of me, my life, my protection. They are alive, in a way you cannot understand yet. They help me sense things. And hide sometimes." James swallowed. The room felt suddenly smaller, heavier, filled with something mysterious and alive. He realized he had been staring too long, but he couldn't look away. She wasn't just an injured stranger anymore, she was something extraordinary. Lyra shifted slightly, glancing at the door. "I cannot stay still too long. They may track my energy." James's heart pounded. "Then we need to, what? Hide you better?" "Yes," she whispered. "And you must trust me. I will not harm you. I only seek safety. Only that." James nodded slowly. He realized that helping her was no longer a choice. She trusted him enough to speak her fears aloud. That trust was fragile and dangerous. Throughout the day, James brought her simple food and water. She accepted it silently, her movements careful and precise, like every gesture had a purpose. At one point, she touched a dying plant near the window. Her hands glowed faintly and the plant perked up, leaves turning greener, stems straightening. James watched in stunned silence. "She's healing it," he whispered to himself. "She's really alive in ways I don't understand." Lyra noticed his gaze and smiled faintly. "I help when I can, but you must not tell anyone. If they find me." Her voice trailed off, leaving a sense of unease that James could feel in his bones. The afternoon passed quietly, but tension built with every sound outside. A bird flapped too loudly, the wind rattled the walls, and James felt eyes watching them from the forest beyond. Lyra sensed it too. She pressed her hands against the floor, tracing patterns, and the small room seemed to shimmer slightly, almost invisible to the outside world. James realized something profound. The blanket she had hidden under was not just to keep warm. It was a shield, a barrier, a secret. And now, with him aware, he had become part of it. That night, as James prepared for sleep, Lyra whispered again, "They will come. You must be ready." James nodded, understanding more than ever that his quiet life had ended. He had glimpsed a being from another world, full of mystery, power, and fear, and now he was bound to her secrets, and the danger that waited beyond the shelter's walls. The hunter comes. The night was unnaturally still. Even the rain that had drenched the shelter earlier in the day had stopped, leaving a heavy, damp silence. James sat near the small fire, trying to keep his mind calm, but every creak of the wooden shelter made him tense. Lyra huddled in the corner, her large, reflective eyes scanning the shadows outside. "They are coming," she whispered suddenly, her voice so soft it barely carried. James froze. "Who?" "The hunters," Lyra said, her voice trembling slightly. "They track me, always. They never rest. They follow the signal of my energy. And tonight, they are close." James swallowed hard. His heart pounded in his chest. He had always known there was danger outside the farm. Wild animals, storms, but this was different. This was something beyond Earth, beyond anything he had ever imagined. A faint hum vibrated through the floorboards. James looked around. The hum grew louder, mechanical, precise. A shadow flickered across the far edge of the shelter. James's breath caught. He had seen nothing like it before. "They have arrived," Lyra whispered. Her fingers traced patterns in the dirt around the corner of the room. The lines glimmered faintly, pulsing with soft light. "This will hide us." For a while, but not forever. James felt a strange warmth from the glowing symbols, as if the dirt itself had become alive. He glanced at Lyra, realizing something terrifying. She was more than fragile and injured. She was powerful. She could defend herself. But against how many hunters? And how advanced were they? Outside, a bright beam of light cut through the shadows. A drone hovered above the field, scanning, searching. James ducked instinctively behind the firewood stack. Lyra pressed her hands to the floor and the light bent around the shelter as if it hit an invisible shield. They can see energy, but not this, Lyra whispered, her fingers moving faster, tracing new symbols. Stay very still. James obeyed, feeling a strange mixture of fear and awe. Sparks of light danced around the patterns, creating a dome over the corner where they hid. The drone scanned again, its sensors whirring, but it moved on, at least for now. They will not leave easily, Lyra said, her voice steady now. Hunters are patient, they wait. They test. Suddenly another hum came, louder and deeper. A larger drone emerged from the forest, moving with frightening precision. It was bigger, more advanced, and its sensors glowed red in the darkness. James felt his stomach twist. This was no ordinary machine, it was a predator. They are too strong, James whispered. Lyra's eyes narrowed. I can hold them off, but not for long. You must be ready. If they break the shield. A pulse of energy shot toward the shelter. The dome shimmered violently. James's hands shook as debris flew from the corners of the room. Lyra raised her hands and the pulse bent away from them, harmless. The glow from her skin intensified, filling the room with soft, blinding light. James realized that she was not just hiding. She was fighting, and he was witnessing something extraordinary. The patterns on her arms glowed brighter, flowing like liquid light. She moved with precision, almost dancing, and the larger drone hesitated, confused by the strange power. They will not give up, Lyra said softly, almost to herself, but neither will I. The larger drone pulsed again, testing the shield, and James felt a chill run down his spine. He knew this was just the beginning. The hunters were relentless, and now they had located her. James swallowed hard. He had no idea what lay ahead, only that his quiet life had ended. The alien hiding in his shelter was not only extraordinary, she was in danger, and soon he would be part of a war far bigger than anything he had ever imagined. Outside, the wind rustled through the trees, carrying a faint, mechanical hum. Lyra pressed her hands together, muttering words James did not understand. Sparks flickered around the symbols. The hunters were close, but for now, they could not see them. James clenched his fists. He had to survive. She had to survive. And together they would face whatever came next. Bonding in the shadows, the storm had passed, leaving the forest wet and quiet. The hunters had disappeared for now, but the tension in the air didn't fade. James sat near the shelter's small fire, rubbing his hands together while Lyra crouched in the corner, her shimmering skin pulsing softly in the dim light. The faint glow of the patterns on her arms reminded James of fireflies, but alien, alive, and intelligent. I don't know how you do that, James said finally, breaking the silence. How you move the energy, the light. How you protect yourself. Lyra tilted her head, her large eyes reflecting the firelight. It is part of me, she said softly. It is how I survive. It is how I hide from them. How I help the world, even if only a little. James watched her carefully. There was something fragile about her, something powerful and yet human in a way he couldn't explain. He realized that despite her alien appearance, there was trust in her gaze. Trust that he wouldn't betray her. Why did they come for you? James asked, curiosity mixing with fear. Who are these hunters? Lyra's eyes darkened slightly. They are not human, she said. They follow me across worlds. They want to capture me, to take what I am, or destroy me. I escaped. But they are patient. They will not stop, James nodded slowly. The thought of her being hunted across the stars made his chest tighten. He had never imagined the universe could be so vast, and so dangerous. For a long time they sat quietly. James noticed how she studied every corner, every shadow, as if the forest itself could hide dangers. Then, without warning, she reached out and touched a small, dying plant near the shelter. Her fingers glowed faintly, tracing a pattern in the soil. Within seconds, the plant's leaves perked up, green and strong again. James's jaw dropped. You healed it? Lyra nodded, smiling faintly. I can only do small things. I cannot change everything. But life, all life, deserves a chance. James felt something he hadn't felt in a long time, wonder. And fear too. He realized that this being, fragile and shivering only a few nights ago, was extraordinary. She could bend energy, communicate in ways humans could not understand, and survive things no human could endure. Over the next few hours, James and Lyra began to talk, carefully in small words, simple sentences. She told him little about her home, her people, and the life she had fled. He shared stories about the farm, about his quiet life, about nights like this one, where rain fell and the wind whispered secrets in the trees. A strange connection formed between them. She trusted him enough to speak, to let him see her glowing skin and pulsing patterns. He trusted her enough to protect her, to hide her from the hunters that might return at any moment. You are brave, Lyra said suddenly. Most humans would have run. Most humans would have left me, or harmed me. You stayed. James shook his head, embarrassed. I don't know if I'm brave, I couldn't leave you out there. You needed help. She smiled faintly again, and for a moment the weight of the universe seemed to lift. The firelight reflected in her eyes, and James felt a warmth he hadn't expected. But the shadows outside were never far. Lyra's hands moved in the dirt again, tracing symbols faster than James could follow. I feel them, she whispered. They are waiting. Watching. We must be ready. And you must trust me completely. James nodded. He didn't fully understand her powers or the danger that lay beyond the forest, but he understood one thing. This was no longer just a stranger in a storm. This was a being from another world, and he was now part of her fight for survival. As the night deepened, the rain-soaked trees swayed gently, and the shadows seemed to stretch longer. In that fragile, quiet moment, James realized the truth. Bonding, trust, and understanding could be their strongest defense. Even in a universe full of hunters. And in the shelter's dim glow, the human and the alien sat side by side, ready to face whatever came next. The first attack. The night was heavy, thick with tension. Even the fire inside the shelter seemed smaller, dimmer, as if it knew danger was near. James sat silently, listening to the faint rustle of leaves outside while Lyra crouched nearby. Her glowing patterns pulsed softly, lighting up the room like stars trapped in her skin. They are coming, Lyra whispered, her voice low but urgent. James felt his chest tighten. How do you know? Lyra's eyes narrowed. They are hunters. They track energy life, and they've been patient. Tonight, they will test us. A sudden hum filled the air, a low metallic vibration that made James shiver. He could feel it through the floorboards in his bones. From the edge of the forest, a faint red glow appeared, then another and another. Drones, dozens of them hovering silently, scanning, searching. James ducked instinctively behind the firewood. How do we fight them? He whispered. Lyra didn't answer immediately. Her hands moved in the dirt, tracing familiar symbols that glimmered with soft blue light. A small dome shimmered around them, bending light and shadow, making them almost invisible. They are clever, she murmured, but I can protect us. For now. The drones hovered closer, their sensors blinking and whirring. One fired a small pulse of energy. The dome shimmered violently, throwing sparks into the air, but held. James's heart pounded. They are testing the shield, Lyra said. If they break it, we will have no second chance. Suddenly, a larger drone emerged, bigger and more menacing than the others. Its sensors glowed red. It hovered closer, scanning, analyzing. James could feel its intelligence in the air, calculating, relentless. Stay back, Lyra warned, her fingers tracing faster patterns in the dirt. The glowing dome pulsed brighter, energy crackling like lightning. The large drone fired a powerful beam. James felt heat wash over him as the light hit the shield. Sparks flew, striking the walls and ceiling. Lyra's skin glowed intensely, illuminating the small shelter with a blinding light. James stared in awe. You're incredible, he whispered. Lyra didn't look at him. Her focus was absolute. Her hands moving faster than the eye could follow. Symbols traced themselves in the air, intertwining, forming a web of energy. The drone struggled against it, its beam flickering, weakening. They will not give up, Lyra said, her voice steady but firm. But neither will I. Suddenly, one of the smaller drones broke formation and aimed directly at James. He froze, unable to move, heart racing. Lyra noticed instantly. She shot her hand toward him, a pulse of energy hitting the drone. It exploded into sparks before it could reach him. James stumbled back, breathless. I didn't know you could do that. Lyra's eyes softened briefly. I protect. I survive, and now, you are part of that. The drones regrouped, moving faster, more strategically. They had learned, adapted. Lyra's shield flickered under the assault and James felt panic rise. "We need to escape," Lyra said urgently. "I can hold them only for so long. You follow my lead. Trust me." James nodded, determination replacing fear. Together they moved toward the edge of the shelter, Lyra guiding him with quick, precise gestures. Energy crackled around her as she pushed back the drone's attacks, creating a path. A final beam shot toward them, and Lyra's glow intensified, forming a wall of light that stopped it completely. Sparks rained down, filling the air with a metallic smell. James realized, as he ran beside her, that this was only the beginning. The hunters were relentless, intelligent, and now they had located her. The quiet life he had known was gone. But as he glanced at Lyra, glowing and fearless, he understood something else. Together, they could survive. Together, they could fight back. And somewhere in the shadows, beyond the flickering light of the shelter, the hunters waited, patient, persistent, and ready for the next attack, the great escape. The forest was alive with tension. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a branch made James's heart pound. Rain from earlier had soaked the ground, turning the forest floor into a slippery maze. He followed Lyra closely, his hands trembling, his eyes scanning every shadow. "They are coming faster this time," Lyra whispered, her large, reflective eyes narrowing. Her glowing patterns pulsed rapidly, illuminating the path ahead in faint, flickering light. "We cannot hide anymore. We must move, now." James swallowed hard. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere they cannot follow," she replied. "But we must hurry, or they will catch us." From the tree line, a metallic hum grew louder. James froze. Drones, more than last time, hovered above the forest, scanning in red pulses of light. They were relentless, precise, and intelligent. Lyra grabbed his arm and pulled him forward. "Trust me, every step matters." They ran through the forest, slipping over wet roots and ducking under branches. James's lungs burned, but Lyra moved with an otherworldly grace, seemingly unharmed by the muddy ground or the drone's pursuit. Her glowing hands left streaks of light in the darkness, tracing patterns in the air that bent shadows around them. Hiding their movements, a drone fired a pulse of energy, cutting through the undergrowth where they had just been. James stumbled, falling to the ground. Lyra turned instantly, her glowing palm sending a wave of energy that deflected the pulse harmlessly into the trees. Sparks erupted, illuminating the terrified look on James's face. "We have to reach the portal," she urged. "It's our only chance." James scrambled to his feet, following her through a narrow path. The forest opened into a small clearing, and in its center hovered a strange metallic device glowing with alien light. Patterns similar to those on Lyra's skin pulsed across its surface. "The portal," Lyra whispered, urgency in her voice. "Step inside. Quickly." James hesitated for only a second before following her. The device hummed and the symbols glowed brighter, forming a cage of light around them. The energy pulled at him, weightless and strange, as if the world itself had folded. The drones arrived at the edge of the clearing, firing beams and pulses of energy. Lyra's shield flared one last time, deflecting the attacks just long enough. James could feel the heat, the force, the raw power, and he realized that without her they would have been destroyed. Then, with a sudden pull, the world dissolved around them. The forest, the drones, the rain, they all vanished. James felt himself spinning, floating, disoriented, until he landed lightly on a glowing surface. The air hummed with energy, soft and warm, and he realized they were somewhere entirely different. The sanctuary was breathtaking. The walls shimmered with alien energy, soft pulses of light spreading across the room. Lyra's glow blended with the environment, making her appear as if she belonged to this place. James looked around, awestruck. We made it?" Lyra nodded, her eyes still scanning the energy fields around them. "For now. We are safe, but only temporarily. The hunters are patient. They will return. We must rest and plan." James exhaled, relief and exhaustion washing over him. He had survived the first attack and the chase, but he knew the danger was far from over. And yet, standing beside Lyra, he felt a strange sense of awe. She had saved him, more than once. She was powerful, intelligent, and alive in ways he could barely understand. Lyra touched his shoulder lightly. "You are brave, James. Most humans would have run. Most would have left me to face them alone. You stayed. That is why we survived." James nodded, still trying to catch his breath. I couldn't leave you. Not after seeing everything. You're extraordinary. Outside the sanctuary, the world remained dangerous. But inside, James felt a spark of hope. Together, he and Lyra had escaped the first attack. Together, they would face whatever came next. And somewhere, beyond the glowing walls, the hunters waited, calculating, persistent, and ready for the next confrontation. James knew one thing clearly. Their fight was not over. The next challenge would be even greater, and survival would demand everything they had. And perhaps more. New beginnings. The sanctuary hummed softly with alien energy, casting a calm blue glow across the walls. James sat on a raised platform, still catching his breath from the frantic escape. Rain tapped faintly against the outer dome, a reminder of the stormy nights behind them. For the first time since Lyra had arrived, there was quiet. Fragile, tense, but quiet. Lyra crouched nearby, her glowing skin pulsing softly in sync with the sanctuary's energy. Her large, reflective eyes scanned the room, always alert, always cautious. James could see a hint of exhaustion beneath her strength, the weight of constant fear and running evident in her posture. "They won't stop," she said softly. "The hunters? They will find me eventually." James swallowed, heart heavy. "Then what do we do?" Lyra's gaze shifted to the glowing symbols etched into the sanctuary floor. "We survive. And then, we prepare. There is a place where I can contact my people. They may help. And maybe help Earth too." James nodded slowly, understanding the gravity of her words. The world he had known, quiet, simple, predictable, was gone. He had glimpsed something far larger. The universe beyond Earth, filled with life, conflict, and powers humans could barely imagine. "And Lyra was at the center of it. You're leaving?" he asked quietly, a lump forming in his throat. Lyra turned to him. "I must warn them. I must protect them. And I will return, I promise. But first, I must survive. You understand, don't you?" James nodded, though fear and sorrow mingled in his chest. I understand. I don't want you to go." She stepped closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. Her skin shimmered faintly under the glowing light. "You have courage, James. Most humans would have run or hidden. You stayed. You trusted me. That is rare, and it matters. It matters more than you realize." For a long moment, they simply looked at each other. The connection between them was unspoken but undeniable, a bond forged through danger, fear, and trust. Lyra's hands moved to the center of the sanctuary, tracing glowing symbols faster than James could follow. The portal device thrummed in response, its light pulsing brighter. "I am ready," she said softly. James swallowed hard, stepping forward. "Take care, Lyra, you changed my life." Her eyes softened, almost like a smile. "And you changed mine, remember? Hope can exist even in the darkest times. Trust, courage, and connection. Those are the strongest powers you have, James. Never forget that." With a final glance, Lyra stepped into the portal. The energy flared, surrounding her with blinding light. James shielded his eyes, hearing the faint hum of alien technology as it enveloped her completely. Then in an instant, she was gone. James sank to the floor, heart racing, the silence around him both comforting and empty. Outside, the rain had stopped. The forest was calm, but the world was not the same. He knew the hunters would not stop. They would keep searching. Days passed. James returned to the farm, tending to the chickens and the land. Life went on, but it carried a new weight, a new awareness. He noticed subtle changes. The air felt lighter, the plants greener, the animals calmer. A faint hum sometimes echoed in the wind, and he thought he could see glimmers of light in the distance like fireflies, or perhaps a sign of Lyra watching over him. He learned that courage could be quiet, that hope could survive even in fear, and that connection between worlds, between beings, could change lives in ways unimaginable. At night, James would look at the stars, searching for the shimmer of Lyra's presence. Sometimes he swore he saw her silhouette among the constellations, a silent protector, a reminder of everything extraordinary in the universe. The hunters were still out there. The universe remained dangerous. But James understood one thing clearly. New beginnings were always possible. Courage, trust, and hope could forge paths where none seemed to exist. And in that knowledge, life itself felt like a story waiting to be written. James smiled, standing under the night sky, feeling the weight of the past and the promise of the future. The storm had passed. The adventure had changed him. And the universe had only just begun.